The goal of the program is for the hang tags is to not, in the event we have a storm and we have damage and we've been impacted, we don't want everybody and their brother coming over the bridge and being looky-loos and being in the way of the recovery process to try to get the island back up and running. It's very difficult and very dangerous if you've got people just wandering around. So what we want to do is we want to only have the people out here that are supposed to be out here, that have business on the island or have property on the island. That's the purpose of the hang tags, is to keep everybody here that's supposed to be here, and anybody that's not a part of the effort to get it back going, they don't need to come over the bridge. If you are a commercial venture, you're a business, you get an orange tag. So if anybody out there has a business going, landscaping or the real estate or some of the other the businesses in town, they need to get these. And again, the business owner has to get the orange tag, and they have to issue it to their employees. A couple of tips with the tags are, keep all your tags together, unless you've given it to somebody that's going to come out. Keep them all together in your hurricane kit or your emergency kit so that when the time comes that you need them, you'll know where they're at. Sometimes people put them in different places, in the glove box of the car, in the suitcase, in the phone book, and then they forget where they are and they get misplaced. So we don't mind giving you another tag, but what we don't want to happen is when it comes time to have the tag is for you not to be able to have the tag. You can come down to the station and we will issue you a tag. You just come in and you see Nancy. We issue tags from 10 o'clock in the morning until noon and from 1 o'clock until 4, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. The other thing that we strive to do is Nancy is the only person that can issue a tag. We have one person and one database and one person that procures the database. That way everything is in there properly and it's easier maintained. The last thing somebody needs is for me to be trying to enter something into the database on the computer. It may not necessarily get in there well. So she does that. If you don't have one and you need them, Nancy's on vacation this week. Tuesday she'll be back next week, and you can go down to the station. I do have some literature about the hang tag program. It's out on the table in the lobby if you want to grab some of that on your way out. And I also have applications. We do require you to fill out a little application. It's very short and sweet, but it helps us harvest some information. Some of the things about the hang tag program, we've had some other situations since we started it, and we've actually been able to use the hang tag information to get a hold of a property owner in the event they had something going on at their house and they were gone and we needed to contact somebody quickly, like a water leak, or somebody actually got stuck in an elevator and called a friend and the friend didn't know the address. So we went to the hang tag database, cross-referenced the name, and we were to the house and got her out of the elevator in about 5 minutes. And it was August and it was hot in there, so it actually worked out pretty well. So that's short and sweet for the hang tags. That's the gist. If you don't have one, please get one. Please get one soon rather than later. Once the storm is impending and we get to a certain point where there's other things to do, we won't be able to issue, certainly we can't issue hang tags if the storm is blowing in on us. We're going to have to be out of there and doing other things. Sand. Some of you out here use sandbags. If you need to get sandbags to sandbag your property or your business, we have empty sandbags at the station. We have an allotment of sand that's down off of Wheeler. Come by and get sandbags, and we'll direct you to where the sandbag or the sand is at, the sand pile is at. So if you need sandbags, just come by and see us. We don't mind giving them to you ahead of time so that you already have the bag, so that's one less thing you have to do when you need to do something. You're more than welcome to come by and get them any time. The EOC is very generous with us. We probably have 5,000 of them upstairs in the station, so we'll be more than happy to share them with you. The other most important thing that everybody needs to understand is if we are impacted by a storm, pre-storm and during the storm, the fire station is not an approved shelter. And we will also be bringing people back into the station, personnel, maybe extra equipment, maybe extra personnel. So it's important to know that if you are evacuated, if you're ordered to evacuate, you need to evacuate off island. That doesn't mean evacuate to the station because we may not have enough room for you. We want to be able to take care of you, but we have to do our job as well, and we may not be able to do it as efficiently with a house full of people. So we need when an evacuation order is given, they'll be given information to that effect, where to go. Fire station, it may not be your best of choices. We may ask you to continue on, and we'll give you that information if you end up there. We can tell you how to get where you're going. As far as evacuation goes, if we have an impending storm, if the EOC issues an evacuation order, and they'll kind of touch on that when they get their time to talk. As far as it goes for us, what we're going to do if an evacuation order is given is we're going to disseminate that through the Island EOC group. We have an EOC group that meets with us, and we can push that back out through our folks in the EOC group, who will then disseminate it to their people. The EOC group is made up of folks around the island that are in charge of the different entities and the different businesses and stuff that can help us push that information back out. The department has a website, bocagrandefire.com. That'll be up on the website. There's an information box on there about hurricanes. There's a news ticker across the top. We would put that information up on that website as soon as we get it, and we're also going to put the guys out in the trucks to drive the streets. We'll start south to north, and we'll have the PAs on the trucks, and we'll let everybody know that there's been an evacuation order issued, and you need to evacuate. And then you need to go to the TV or the news media or call the station, and we'll give you the information about where you need to go, or just simply to evacuate somewhere else. So it's good to have a plan before the storm so that you know where your hang tags are, you know where you're going to go. Just have a general idea so that at the last minute you're not trying to scramble around. Make sure you should have a list of belongings in your head, and Gerald will probably go into the more particulars of a hurricane safety kit and that when he gets to talk. But just have a general idea kind of where you're going to go and what you're going to be doing when the time comes, because once the time comes, that's not the time to be thinking about it. It's much better, we all know this, to plan ahead. Those are basically the points that I kind of wanted to hit on. Does anybody have any questions out of the gate? Yes, ma'am. Right, and we would disseminate that information to you, and we can get the Charlotte County All Hazards Guides too. And we can get some of that for the station. Okay. Come on, somebody test me. Anything else? Yes, ma'am. You mean, are you going to try to... Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. We normally don't maintain that list. The thing for you to do is to pay attention to the TV or the radio. Watch that weather report at night when a storm, if a storm brews up and starts becoming an impending situation, then you just need to pay attention. And then those information and those instructions will be given, over the news media, through the TV, through the radio. If you want to check in with the station, if you have information or have any questions, you're more than welcome to do that. That's what we're going to do our best, is to disseminate as much information as we can. But we'll also be doing pre, during, and post operations as well. And we're a small department, so we'll only be able to do so much, but we're going to do our best to get as much information out as you can. And there are going to be some other things touched on too here that you can get some information. There's a couple other tools that we're going to share with you today. Yes, ma'am. If the storm is so powerful that the building is only rated for so much, 120-mile-an-hour winds. So if the storm is stronger than what the station can withstand, or the surge, then we would evacuate as well. We may actually, depending on, and again, it all depends on the storm, the trajectory, the strength, surge, we may actually take certain equipment and personnel off island and leave some people here, and then come back on the island after the storm passes. There's a lot of little nuances that we're going to look, and we're going to read, and we're going to gauge. But we're going to be here as long as we can, as much as we can. We don't want to go away, but in the end of the day, if the building is going to become overran, I can't put people in harm's way, and I don't expect any of you guys to be out here either. If everybody's gone and evacuated, then we shouldn't have anybody to take care of. Yes, Grace. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. And Grace Ott she was kind of the spearhead of this. She kind of pushed and prodded us along and helped us get this thing set up today. So I want to thank her too, because this was a wonderful idea. So, yeah. All right. With that being said, Chief Tuttle, you got a few words or?
My name is Scott Tuttle. I'm the Chief of Lee County Emergency Medical Services, and I just wanted to really thank everybody here for and the chief for inviting us out to this island. Back in the early 80s when Lee County EMS started providing service out here, I was one of the first paramedics to come out and just really fell in love with the area at that time, and really proud to be able to serve you guys in any capacity possible. If there is an evacuation, it's always one of the questions that I always anticipate is, like the chief was saying, if the fire department has to go, we're going to go too, and that keeps our personnel safe and it keeps the equipment safe. And what it does is it enables us to be able to come back on the island quicker during the rebuild phase when we're trying to clean everything up and be able to provide the services that you need during that phase. A lot of injuries and accidents occur post-storm, and that's when you have a lot of people that are out there doing a lot of activities, trimming trees and protecting their homes that they're not used to doing. A lot of people will be up on roofs that aren't used to being up on roofs and that sort of thing. So that's, we want to be able to come back out here and limit the amount of time that we're off island as much as possible. So, Chief, thanks for inviting us out, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. Those are the easy ones. Gerald?
Okay, it looks like I'm up. I'm Gerald Campbell with Lee County Emergency Management, work out of the Emergency Operations Center. For those of you who might not be familiar, we are the hurricane people. We do other things, but we are the hurricane people. I'm very proud of that. We are the folks who deal with evacuation issues, who deal with traffic control, sheltering, and the other things that you have to do and deal with when a hurricane comes along. So as part of that, I'm going to keep mine kind of short here. I only want to talk about a couple things. Evacuation is always a big deal. People ask, when are you going to order us to evacuate? And the answer to that is it varies for each storm. We use a set of criteria that we work backwards from. We do a countdown, the time it takes to get people away, the onset of tropical storm force winds. And as you watch hurricane coverage on TV, you will hear a lot of discussion about the landfall of the hurricane. As an emergency manager and as an evacuee, potentially, you don't care about landfall of the hurricane. What we care about is the onset of tropical storm force winds. That can occur 24 hours or more before landfall, so we may be asking you to evacuate on a very clear, beautiful, nice day because the storm is 2 days away, tropical storm force winds 1 day away. But we manage that evacuation timing schedule to give you time to get away. There's always a question about essentially why do you evacuate people, and I will tell you this, there's only one reason that we will ever require you to evacuate your home, and that's because your life is in danger. It's in more danger if you stay than if you go. We know as emergency managers, as first responders, the people at this table know that during an evacuation, lives will be lost. Traffic accidents, moving people out of nursing homes, healthcare facilities. There are a lot of frail people who will not survive that experience. There are some healthy people who will not survive that experience. We in emergency management and public safety take that responsibility very, very seriously. We understand that those people are in that situation because of something that I did, because of an order that we issued. So the only reason we will ever ask you to do that is if your life is in more danger if you stay than if you go. So that said, I normally tell people to know your evacuation zone. I don't have to say that here. I know your evacuation zone. It's A. And you will hear orders, evacuation orders that deal with evacuations by zone. A, B, C, D. A is the first, the highest risk category, the first to be evacuated. So as a resident in an A evacuation zone, not only will you move often for storms, you will move early for storms because you're at the most risk. The other main driver when we think about hurricanes, we think a lot about the winds because that's what we see on TV. And we have shutters and we have things that we can do for the wind, and we feel that we're well prepared. And we can prepare our home against the wind, and you should do that. But the thing that is more difficult to prepare for is storm surge. Now, a lot of you have collapsible walls, sacrificial structure underneath your homes. Your homes are built up on pilings. But even at that, that is not high enough to safely elevate you above storm surge for significant hurricanes and then the wind-driven waves on top of that. So if we ask you to evacuate here, it's primarily due to storm surge, at values that are going to be high enough to overwash not only your island but the homes on your islands and piers as well in some cases. That's why the fire department leaves. That's why EMS leaves. It's physically not safe for them to stay there. That should be a warning to you. It's physically not safe for you to stay here either. Not to mention they're not going to be here if you survive the storm. You won't have those services. And finally, I'm going to tell you a little bit about a kit. Make a kit, keep it with you, have the things that you need, include food that you can open and prepare without heating, water, at least 1 gallon per person per day for drinking, more for sanitary use, medicines, important papers, a little bit of cash, and I always encourage people, particularly in a vulnerable environment like a barrier island, take something of personal importance to you. Whether it's a photo album, your wedding photo album, whether it's your kid's graduation or grandkids, take something. You can't carry the accumulated stuff of 30 or 40 or 50 years of living, but carry something with you in case it's not here. Keep that kit with you. If you've got pets, prepare for them. If it's not safe for you to be here, it's not safe for them. They need a kit, they need a plan as well. So as we do this, work through that, get a plan. You received an all-hazard guide as you came in this afternoon. Please take a look at that. It's got some really good things. And yes, it does have the Lee County evacuation plan in there. We will help the chief make sure you get Charlotte County for here. But on the very first page, it has a list of resources from our website, leeeoc.com. If you're web savvy, there's a lot of information on there. You can download the Lee Evac app, which will tell you if you're ordered to evacuate. You can follow us on Twitter. You can friend us on Facebook if you do those things. And all of our information goes out to the web, out to the website, and to local media. So take advantage of the resources that are there. Watch the weather, pay attention, and if we ask you to evacuate, if we order that evacuation, if these guys come through your neighborhood with the loud hailers going, heed their advice. It's for your own safety. Any questions for me? Yes, sir.
You know, during Charlie, a few people stayed. What's the nature of the evacuation order? Is it totally mandatory? Is there penalties other than death?
Yes. That's actually the ultimate penalty. The question is, what, essentially, if I can paraphrase, what's the status of an evacuation order? Are there penalties involved? And the requirement to heed evacuation orders. So yes, when Lee County does not issue voluntary evacuation orders, frankly, you're free to leave anytime you want to, and we encourage that. But when we issue an evacuation order, it is a mandatory evacuation order. It is issued at the last moment, the last safe moment to leave. When you hear an evacuation order, that's not the time to get ready. That's the time to put your plan into action and leave. So as we issue those, they do carry the force of law. It is a misdemeanor, I believe. The problem for you is not whether a deputy is going to show up at your house and drag you away. If you choose to stay in a dangerous area, that's your problem. If I drag you away, now you're my problem. And believe me, we've got plenty of problems at that point. But the issue, the real issue comes later if something does go wrong with insurance companies, 1-800-SUE-'em lawyers, and all of the other things that say you didn't protect your property, you didn't protect yourself. They carry far more consequences in the end than the simple evacuation order. Yes, sir.
Some years ago, we finished up with multiple houses. We really counted. I presume there are no constraints about which kinds of shelters you go to.
The question is about the availability and limitations on shelters, and that is true. You are able to go to any public shelter that's open. One of the issues that has come up recently is, particularly in Charlotte County, they have a shortage of shelter spaces, as does Lee County, but they're even worse than us. They only have a few facilities that they can open in relatively minor events. So our advice is to, first off, if you're here and you're stuck and you need a place to go, by all means go to a public shelter. But please make that your last. Make that plan C or D, not A or B. Your A or B plan, get out of the area, stay with friends and neighbors in a strong home, hotels and motels out of the evacuation zone. The evacuation orders will be very specific into this area is under an evacuation. We will call it Zone A, but we will also issue words like barrier and coastal islands that include Boca Grande, Sanibel, Pine Island in some cases. and those sorts of things. So there will be good information on, am I included in the evacuation order? And that Lee Evac app that I was talking about for your Android or Apple smartphone, if you allow it, it will, when we issue that evacuation order, your phone will actually alert you and says, I'm now in an evacuation zone, we should leave. You know, I try to get it to say something cool like that, but it says something more sterile, like your area is now under a mandatory evacuation order. Tune to local media or leeeoc.com for more information. So that's another fine way to find out. Local media is always a good choice.
What sort of risk do you run of ending up on a clogged interstate that's going no place in the middle of evacuation?
So later, the question is, what kind of risk is there regarding traffic? And there is always a risk. There's going to be traffic out there now, and if we get caught behind an accident or something like that, there are going to be delays. But as we work through the process, we work closely with folks like Florida Department of Transportation, Lee County Department, Charlotte County. We coordinate also very carefully with Charlotte County Emergency Management, who does all of the things from their emergency management side that we do in Lee, to coordinate moving that traffic, because one of the things to understand is if you're ordered to evacuate, South Lee County is ordered to evacuate, Charlotte, Sarasota, probably all the way up to Tampa, from Collier to Tampa, may be ordered to evacuate. We understand that traffic is it's not going to be a normal day on the interstate. Our goal is to keep traffic moving at about 25 miles an hour. If you leave earlier, you won't be stuck in that mess. The later you leave, the worse the traffic is going to be. But if you follow the evacuation orders and you follow the advice, there will still be time to get out of town safely. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
What about loss of power? You don't have any television or radio?
Excellent question. The question is, what happens when you lose power? And let's get this out of the way. You will lose power on the hurricane at some point. It would be a miracle if you did not. Make sure that you've got a car charger for your cell phones. Your car battery will still work. They sell little solar-powered devices that are pretty cool and pretty cheap these days. That will help. One of the most important pieces of safety equipment, actually the second most important piece of safety equipment that you can have in your home, is a NOAA weather radio. It runs off of your regular household power, but is also backed up with a battery in there. It will sit on standby and only alert you to the things that you need to hear, provided you program it to do that. So NOAA weather radios, battery-powered radio. Some people even spring for battery-powered TVs, but my experience with those is you better have lots of batteries because they use those up quite quickly. And for the record, the most important piece of safety equipment in your home, a working smoke detector. But then NOAA radio is a second, very close second. Yeah, they even have, Scotty just reminded me, they even use wind-up. They even have the handle-powered ones. Personally, I find handles break. A couple of 9-volt batteries are pretty cheap. They last a long time. But there's something out there for everybody. Well, thank you. I'm going to pass it back down the way.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to echo the chief's appreciation for everybody that put this together, particularly Grace. Grace is a volunteer with our respite program, and this topic became an outgrowth of a discussion education group for caregivers. And I think Grace has a whole series of these planned that'll be coming. You'll be hearing more about these kind of discussions. So thank you again, Grace, for what you did. Help bring this together for all of us. I'd like to talk for a minute about the normal operations of the clinic so that that'll help us set the stage so you can contrast what it'll be like in an emergency situation. We're a primary care facility and an urgent care center. We're not an emergency facility. We operate Monday through Fridays, normal business hours except holidays. We do have a physician on call 24/7. We're available for after hours and weekends coverages and holidays. We have laboratory and x-ray services, but we're also dependent upon Quest Labs off island, and we're also dependent upon rave for radiology interpretation services. And so that's kind of the general medical care aspect of what we do. We do treat minor emergencies. Some of the things that we can take care of are lacerations, we suture, puncture wounds, hooks. We remove a lot of hooks from time to time. This time of the year we tend to get a few. Abrasions, bruises, sprains. We also assess and triage. And in our assessment and decision to triage a patient, that may be a triage to 911. We often pick up the phone and call 911, and the EMS squad is at our door within a couple of minutes, and they take over the case. Or we may refer off island for people who can go on their own. So that's kind of the normal operation. During severe weather, tropical storms, for example, we may limit operations somewhat. We may scale back to only essential people or to just have the on-call doctor available to you. And one way to find out what we're doing in those situations is to go to our website, and it's bghc.org. And we'll put a notice up there as to what level of service we're providing. When we get into severe weather situations, more acute situations, or if there's an evacuation ordered, we may cease operations until the storm passes. We have a substantial building, but it's not designed as a shelter either. And so we also have to ensure that we do not put our staff in harm's way as well. We do have a generator at the facility. We have enough fuel to run that generator for about 3 days before we need to replenish the fuel. And so we can be back up and operating pretty quickly after a storm. And that's our goals, is to be back in full operation as soon as possible after a storm. Some of the things that I'd like to suggest in terms of planning ahead, just think about your medications. Be sure you've got at least 3 or 4 days of medications to take with you if you have to evacuate the island. And also have refills available. If you've got a prescription and you've run out of refills, you ought to call the doctor and get another refill, so that if you have to be off the island for extended periods, more than that 3 or 4 days, and you potentially could run out of your medications, at least have a refill so you can go get that refill and continue your medications. There's other things to consider is transportation needs, special assistance. One of the things that we do is we work with the chief and to try and identify at the time of a storm any patients that we have that we know that have special needs, so that he's aware of those individuals in case there's an evacuation, that we can give specific direction or assistance to those people to help them in that evacuation process. The other thing I like to throw in is plan for your pets. We're pet lovers, and so that's high on our priority. Hopefully it's on yours too. This hazards guide I looked through, if you haven't picked up a copy of it, I encourage you to do it. It's an excellent document. It's got a lot of good suggestions for planning. Some of the other things to consider is, particularly if you're going to be here on the island and it's not an evacuation situation, please have a first aid kit. I mean, bandages, Band-Aids, pain anti-inflammatory medications like Tylenol, Advil, have antiseptics, ointments like cortisone or antibiotic ointments, so that you can, if you have minor injuries, and that's one of the things you get in these situations with debris and stuff. There's a lot of minor injuries that occur. As I mentioned, in the evacuation, we'll work and coordinate with the local officials to be sure we try to identify those people that need special assistance and everything on the island. One of the other things is if you have, medical history that's complex in any way, you might want to take your medical record with you. If you come by the clinic, we can put that on a flash drive for you, and you can take that with you, so you've got your records with you if you need health care off the island. Any questions? Yes, Grace.
Joe.
We've got technical things. The question is about the special needs registry and the Lee County Special Needs Program. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, the Special Needs Program provides transportation and shelter for those people who would not do well in a normal shelter. And frankly, that's most of us. Normal shelters are not nice places to be, but medically not do well. If you require oxygen, if you medically require air conditioning, conditioned air, and a few other things. The Special Needs Program has a special needs shelter set aside for people with those requirements. The process is an application process. The applications are available online at leeeoc.com. Again, in the front page of this All Hazards Guide, you'll find that. We prefer the electronic applications, or you can print the application and fax or mail it back to us. But the key is that comes into the Emergency Operations Center to a lady named Debbie Quimby. She processes the application on our end. We do ask some technical medical detail about you so that we know the right place for you to go and wind up, and also so that we can know whether we can help you or not, even in our shelters. So the applications get entered into our system. They get reviewed by Dr. Hartner. She's the director of the health department. She is a real MD, so she understands the diagnosis. Her agency also technically runs the special needs shelter, so she knows what can be done there. So if you need oxygen, you need continuous electricity, you need air conditioning, your doctor says you should consider this program. Or if you simply need transportation, and there are folks out there who need transportation, sign up. The registration's free. The process is free. You're not required to use it. As a matter of fact, if we call you up and say there's a storm coming, do you need your space, and you say no, we're very happy with that. So we're happy with you having another plan. But in your sheltering plan, this is another good B or C option. The catch is, go ahead and sign up today. Even if you don't think you need it, or if you don't think you qualify, don't try to self-diagnose. Fill out the application, send it to us, we'll take a look. The reason that I say do it today is that once Lee County enters the 5-day cone, that big white cone for a hurricane, we stop processing applications. Because at that point, we're actually starting to work with people to move them. So it's not an arbitrary thing, we just change gears. So please go